Thank you very much, Debang, for that great introduction. And a huge thank you to Trilog for allowing me to share what Malaysia has been doing and hopefully will continue to do for the better part of the near future. So, before I start, how many of you have actually heard of the Global Compact? Oh, wow, a fair number. Well, for the benefit of those who have not, I'm going to start with a little bit of background about who we are and what we do. So let's see. Yes, it works. Okay, so the Global Compact is a worldwide initiative with over 12,000 members around the world. And we're super well connected with a huge network of experts in all kinds of fields related to sustainability. And we help companies to practice and promote sustainability by mapping, aligning, delivering locally to meet all the UN Sustainable Development Goals. There. Now, back in 2000, our founder, the late Mr. Kofi Annan, saw a need that was not being addressed in the United Nations as a whole, and that was the need to engage with the private sector. Because most of the time, they just viewed the United Nations as another regulatory body that they were forced to comply with. So the way we operate is very much more flexible than the rest of the United Nations, which is why companies actually like to work with us. I always say I want to work with everybody, but not everybody wants to work with me. So, in short, we're a policy framework that companies can commit to sustainability and responsible business practices, and we want to align all businesses with strategies everywhere that can engage with the universally accepted principles on human rights, labor, environmental, and of course everyone's favorite, anti-corruption. Now, the 17 goals are massive, the SDGs. It's 17 goals, 169 indicators and 230 targets. And even huge companies like Vodacom can only do 6, which is already tremendous. So thank you very much for that. So what we came up with, even before the SDGs came about, was our own set of 10 principles. Now these are business-friendly, easy to follow, and extremely relevant to what companies actually do need to become sustainable themselves. Okay. In short, and of course, principles for human rights, labor, environmental, and anti-corruption. And in short, it's good for people, it's good for planet, and it's good for profit. Most important there. Now, also, as mentioned by Ms. Takalani earlier, this is how we engage with the ESG, environmental, social governance. Everything that businesses can impact is what we can help advise on. So any companies who have footprints, or their stakeholders have footprints in these areas, is something that any Global Compact can also provide assistance and advice on. And these are some of the examples of the companies that are members in Malaysia. Now, the way it works is every country has its own local network. That's what we are. So I deal exclusively with Malaysian companies. And a few examples of the impacts that these companies have had thanks to being part of the Global Compact. We have a financial institution who is very quietly dumping all of their environmentally toxic investments because they realize if they got caught being invested in, say, mining companies or chemical companies, that might look really, really bad for their portfolio as a whole. Another one, which is a timber company, has begun, for the last couple of years, has been massively supporting a huge reforestation project in Malaysia, which has helped to undo some of the damage, because one of the big problems Malaysia has is deforestation, of course. I'm sure you've all seen the pictures of the orangutans being whatever. Anyway, and another one is working with us right now to help come up with a complete scheme to help any kind of disabled person or differently abled person in the country, which is another aspect that Malaysia is sorely lacking on. Now, this is where I plug myself a bit. The Global Compact is everywhere. Anywhere where there's business to be done and the infrastructure to get it done, we can be there. So I appeal to you, all the businesses in the room, all the people who want to start a business, at the very least, look for the local chapter in your area. It could be South Africa, Morocco, Sudan. I just want everybody to be aware that we are here and we want to help you. You know, if you want to be sustainable but have no idea where to start, or if you are already trying some projects but you don't know how to expand or do more, or even if you're in trouble with some kind of NGO, the Global Compact can help you with that. Now, for the part you actually want to hear me talk about, Malaysia. So, in Malaysia, we are celebrating 1 year of a historic general election, where we managed to peacefully overthrow a government that has been in power for 60 years now. Since the founding of Malaysia till last year, they were the ones in charge. And a big part of that was because our current Prime Minister is actually the same Prime Minister who retired 20 years ago, but then decided to come back into politics. Sound familiar? So it's been a very interesting 12 months. There's been some good, a lot of good actually. It's currently the most transparent government we've had in a long time. They've lowered the voting age so that more youth can actually be involved in the political process. And they've begun the arduous process of giving back rights to a lot of indigenous peoples that were kind of trampled on in the last 50 years. Now, it's not all sunshine and roses, of course. There are some aspects that not everybody agrees on. Like the new government has taken on quite a few of the old guard to run the things that they used to run before. And unfortunately, because of that, some of their old bad habits are creeping back into it. But overall, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back is still progress. And that is the key that we should always strive to when it comes to developing a nation, any nation. And as long as we continue that progress, we will eventually all become healthy, wealthy, and wise, and happy. Now, they always leave that part out of healthy, wealthy, and wise. So, I want to share some of the things that have been achieved because of collaboration with various stakeholders in the public-private sector. And, of course, the Global Compact works with partnerships. We are, generally speaking, a small team, and we rely on a lot of partners to get things done. And these are some of the examples, including CECP, of course. But the one I would like to focus on is the top left group. Now, they are called the CSO SDG Alliance. And we are very happy to work with them because they are actually a group of 30 different NGOs and advocacy organizations that have banded together in Malaysia to engage at top-level politics and make sure that everybody's voice is actually heard. Now, thanks to that collaboration, there's me in the middle there, we managed to secure a dialogue with the Economic Planning Unit. Now, that is the agency in Malaysia that determines how the government spends its money and develops the various areas and sectors that need to be developed in the country. So, thanks to this, both the Global Compact in Malaysia and the CSO SDG Alliance are included in our national development plans. And that is the kind of impact that we really want to have. We want to be part of the dialogue. We want to make sure that we can guide every stakeholder in the development process to become better and really more in line with sustainability. And a direct result of this partnership is what we call the National SDG Portal. Now, I'll admit this wasn't a 100% original idea, but we took a basic idea and made it better. So this is an online platform which is open to the public. And the goal of it is so that anybody with a an SDG-related project, or even a project that is sustainable, but wants to be quantified by the SDGs, can put it on this platform. It can be promoted, which is good for the company. And the information that they key in there will then be fed into a national SDG dashboard, which is monitored by the EPU. Now, the eventual goal of this kind of idea is so that every country in the world could have their own local national portal, which would all feed into a central database that anyone in the world could access. Because one of the biggest problems with the SDGs is, how do you measure it? How do you know which SDG is being implemented in which area at what rate? Now, it's not just all government and politics and whatnot. We also make sure to help from the ground up. So one of our other partners is the Co-Roundtable, which is based in Geneva. So we worked with them, the Co-Roundtable chapter in Japan. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but one of the big issues with Malaysian reputation is palm oil. So we worked with them in Japan and got a huge group of pharmaceutical CEOs who sourced their palm oil from Malaysia and the neighboring countries. And we brought them over so that they could actually see on the ground what is happening, what is going on, and where their palm oil is actually impacting the local environment. And thanks to this kind of initiative, they are now committed to having 100% sustainable palm oil supply chain by, I believe, 2023. So, and they have allocated dedicated budgets to help all the farmers in Malaysia to understand why it's important to be sustainable and equip them with the tools and the knowledge necessary so that they can get this kind of initiative off the ground. And this was the engagement with the stakeholders themselves and the CEOs themselves when after the visit to the palm oil fields. Now, I don't want to take up too much time because I want to make sure there's enough room for Q&A after this. So I'll end with the SDGs. I want everybody to understand that while it's still not easy, it has never been easier for people who want to have impacts on environments, on human rights, to do so. The SDGs are very attractive. You know, companies love to have these 17 bright, colorful pictures there. So you can use this kind of trick them into becoming more sustainable. And, you know, the solutions are out there. You just got to look. Companies looking to give are also out there. You just got to connect with them. But most importantly, beyond the SDGs, beyond the funding, beyond all that, you got to do what you feel is right. If you do what you feel is right, what you feel is impactful, and you do it with everything you have, the support will follow. The money will follow. The important thing is to just do it, really. This is not a sponsorship for Nike. So that's what I really want to leave off with here. I have been spending the last 2 days touring what I can of South Africa and Johannesburg, and I see so many parallels with Malaysia and South Africa. We both come from multiracial backgrounds. We both have been through times of strife. We both have experienced very corrupt governments, but all that is temporary. All that can be fixed. And I know if we can work together, it will be fixed. So, thank you.
Excellent. Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got a few minutes before the tea break, and I thought maybe we could really just touch on the transition. And you know, in a very similar situation, you overthrew the previous government. Mm-hmm. What's it called? Pakatan Harapan?
Pakatan Harapan, yes, or PH
That's
for
it.
short. Yes.
PH, yeah. So, you know, the former prime minister, I'm assuming he was part of that previous government. and then set up a new party.
Correct, yeah.
So you've been through a real transition in the country, as you mentioned, freedom of expression, the criminal justice system, and a number of other aspects of the country have opened up and are improving. How has the change in government improved the UN Global Compact Network for Malaysia and its abilities to deliver positive results?
Okay, I'll start by saying, to be fair, it's only been a year. Like, they've had decades of problems to undo, and they are still being bombarded by the current opposition, the former government and even the former prime minister. So they've had to do a lot of firefighting along the way. But to be fair as well, they are now far more open to listening to all the stakeholders. When it comes to the Global Compact, we already know most of the people in power because while we are politically neutral, as I said, we're happy to work with everyone as long as they want to be sustainable. So by having this extra dialogue and this extra openness and transparency, it's now much more easy to get to the right people and get the right projects to go to the right people who need it. So that would be the most obvious benefit that has happened. The second one is they're finally allocating the government budget to the right places. Like education. I know it's nothing compared to the South African budget, but our last budget had the biggest allocation to the education department, which was, I think, if you convert, it's about 3 billion rand. Again, nothing compared to South Africa, but it is our biggest education budget ever. And they are seriously dedicated to making sure the whole education system gets a revamp.
So, on that point, your role on the UN GCNM, I'm just going to go with the acronym rather than say it all out.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, you can say that. So, your role specifically on the UN GCNM, how are you going about trying to engage people, especially considering the conversations we've had over the last day around collaboration? Are you also appraising the corporates that you're engaging about reputation management and helping them build collaborative partnerships?
Absolutely. We operate, as I mentioned earlier, we are not tied down by the typical United Nations bureaucracy. So in a way, it's good and bad because we can do anything we want, but it means we have to decide what to do. Like whether we choose to align it with the national policy or we choose which projects that when people approach us, do we take it or not? And basically whatever I feel like doing, I do. So yeah, we absolutely have to evaluate everyone because we want to make sure we avoid what's called blue washing, where people just stick the United Nations logo there, have a nice big press release, and then they don't actually do anything with it. We are very careful to avoid that. And if we do partner with somebody and they turn out to be fraudulent, we can, I guess the word is excommunicate them publicly from the Global Compact. So we are very strict when it comes to how you work with us, and we don't accept everybody because not everybody is ready to be a Global Compact member.
And I love the Nike punt. Just do it. And that's what it is at the end of the day. I think all of us recognize there's a need and we just need to get on with it and just do it. So with that takeaway, we're going to close off the session, and thank you very much, Shahazar Yazid from the UN Global Compact Network Malaysia. Thank you.